Look, there is no greater threat to our economic well-being, our national security, and even our survival as a species than climate change. And I want to thank Chair Bernice Johnson for taking it seriously, making it a priority of this committee meeting. And I want to thank all of our guests today for your implicit acknowledgement that while we have the authority in this room to debate and ultimately change the laws of the United States, we have no such authority when it comes to the laws of thermodynamics. So thank you. I'd like to address my first question to Dr. Francis. I represent the 6th District of Illinois. We recently experienced a rather extreme cold snap, and as I think you know, and we appreciate, these extreme low temperatures have in fact been attributed counterintuitively to warming in the Arctic that disrupts the Gulf Stream. And yet we have a president who seems to think that a cold snap in one location disproves global warming. Could you please educate us on how global warming in aggregate can lead to periodic polar vortex events in the United States?
Yes, thank you very much. It's not a simple story, and it's an emerging science research question, although the science has been progressing very rapidly in this particular connection between what's happening in the far north with weather patterns more generally, and particular with these extreme cold events in the winter. And what we're learning is that there's a region in the Arctic just north of western Russia where sea ice has been disappearing probably faster than anywhere else. And that particular location is special in the sense that when we lose ice in that area, it absorbs a lot of extra heat from the sun, which then gets returned to the atmosphere, and it tends to create a pattern in the jet stream that can then influence the true polar vortex, which is much higher up in the atmosphere. When these conditions all align, it can topple, if you will, the polar vortex, which is a spinning river of air around this pool of cold air that sits over the Arctic in the wintertime. And when it's a powerful enough punch to that polar vortex, it can cause it to deform or even split into different circulations, and that's exactly what happened this past winter that brought you a new record cold temperature for Illinois. One of these pools of cold air from the Arctic drifted down over North America and reinforced the cold air that's already there during the wintertime. So this connection back to sea ice loss is the climate change connection, because that sea ice is disappearing because of global warming.
Thank you. While Illinois has seen an increase in extremely cold weather, we're also seeing an increase in extreme heat events. We saw it back in 1995 with the great heat wave in Chicago. A lot of the focus has been on urban impacts. There was a recent 2017 study on environmental health that analyzed heat waves in Illinois and found that there were actually significantly higher increases in hospitalizations per capita in rural areas. And with the consent of the chair, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter the study into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. My next question is for Dr. Mehewald. The cost of inaction on climate change is high, but over the last 2 decades, we've seen costs of renewable technologies fall, lots more opportunities for energy efficiency, and at least some initial decoupling of economic growth from CO2 emissions. This is frankly not that surprising to me, I don't think, nor to the business community, because I think we all recognize that when we buy less fossil fuel, we actually save money, and we have a little bit more money in our pocket, notwithstanding some earlier conversations about air conditioner economics. If you invest a little bit more capital today to save a lot of money later, that's a good thing. Dr. Mehewald, you had mentioned in your testimony that limiting warming can, in fact, go hand in hand with increasing economic prosperity, which I hope means that you agree with the points that I just made. I would welcome your thoughts on some of the policy changes you would encourage us to take up that would both lower CO2 emissions and incentivize more investment in the United States and economic growth.
Well, thank you for the question. I want to be honest here. I'm actually a physical science expert, but I will talk a little bit about what the special report from 1.5 has to say on this issue. The important thing that we looked at in this report is where one can cut emissions in the most economic way that also has benefits locally, for example, on air quality or ways that you can change people's behavior that makes them healthier as well as addresses climate change. For example, if Americans and Europeans actually ate the amount of meat and dairy that their doctors recommend they do, they would be healthier. In addition, this would cut emissions of greenhouse gases. So there are a lot of ways that you would save money because you're healthier. Humans would be better off. Americans and Europeans would be better off in all ways, less hospital visits, feel healthier. And at the same time, we're trying to address climate change. So there's quite a bit in the report where there's benefits from climate mitigation that we can feel right now. In addition, just the switch in some policies to make it easier for businesses in these innovative new sectors to have a stable business environment. I mean, what's happening in the United States now is the fragmentation a little bit, as some states are more aggressive than others. And so at the federal level, it would help trade within the United States if there was a little more leveling of the terrain. But overall, there are a multitude of policies and techniques and technologies that are proposed in the special report on 1.5 that each individual state and local government as well as the federal government should evaluate that can make it so that it is economically beneficial to address climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, and I yield back my -1 minute, 30 seconds of time.